Welcome back to Kari's Confessions, a nonprofit exec tells all. I'm Kari Anderson, principal with Incite Consulting. I've spent 25 years in the nonprofit sector in leadership roles with 7 organizations. Now I provide coaching and consulting services to ensure that nonprofits, like yours, have the structure, systems, and practices to do your best work. Wherever I go, I continue to hear that nonprofit execs need a space to gather, to receive tools, feedback, and advice that encourages you to stay the course. Doesn't matter if you're in a village of 182 or a metropolis of millions. Nonprofit work is both gratifying and lonely. I'm here to make sure you have a chance to breathe, laugh, smirk, and get excited again about the important work that you do. So today we're delving into segmenting donors for success. A story for you. A while back, I was chatting with a peer who had received a communication piece from a nonprofit that sounded like the organization was introducing itself to her for the first time. But weird thing, she's in fact a monthly donor to this organization and has a history of volunteering with them. She mentioned that it felt cold and she was a little turned off by the piece. She felt like they didn't know who she was. This is a great example of what not to do when communicating with donors, and it can be easily avoided with donor segmentation. So segmentation is a bit of a buzzword, and with increased access to technology and powerful donor management software tools, there's a lot of information out there. So today's takeaways include developing a clear understanding of what donor segmentation really is, sharing some ways you can segment, even if you don't have a lot of technology. This means you who's still using an Excel spreadsheet, and leaving you with tips for success. So donor segmentation is all about grouping donors together to communicate with them based on shared interests and characteristics. You can segment based on things like age, volunteer history, location, past donation history, event attendees, preferred method of communication, monthly donors. You get the idea. Purpose of segmentation is to make the messages you're delivering to your donors more personal and meaningful specifically to them. A good donor message needs to feel to the donor like it's a letter or email sent directly to them from the organization's executive director, staff member, or board. The more effectively you do this, the better. When you couple donor segmentation with one-on-one handwritten notes, thank you phone calls or text messages, and other stewardship, you're providing a unique donor experience and strengthening the connection donors have with your organization. So here's how to segment. Gather as much information as you can about your donors and ensure it's kept in your donor management tool. If you're not currently using a software tool, I encourage you to explore one, especially this time of year when we're budgeting for next year's fiscal year. Doing this type of work becomes so much easier when you're not navigating things from an Excel spreadsheet. In email platforms, use tags as a way to segment. When importing lists, use tags to identify things like the 2024 year-end campaign or 2024 monthly donor. Making sure that you've got a strategy for each of your communication channels, direct mail, email, social media, etc. And usually that strategy comes via the creation of an annual communication plan. So why does segmenting work and how can it benefit you? You can reach donors where they are. You're segmenting based on a variety of factors, one of which should always be preferred method of communication. If a donor always responds to appeals by writing a check and mailing it in, it's likely direct mail, and mailing things is a good way to reach them. You can identify and target lapsed donors with meaningful messaging. Messaging feels personal to the donor. They feel seen, known, and recognized. This goes a long way in building lasting relationships and increasing donor retention. Strangely enough, right, or not strangely enough, the more you segment, the more you increase your ROI, right? Your return on investment. This stuff works. Segmentation also increases efficiency and the number of donors you can reach in a personalized way. So here are my favorite segmentation tips and strategies. If you're not using an email platform like Constant Contact, MailChimp, or ActiveCampaign, I encourage you to do so. It makes communicating with donors and segmenting so much easier, and they are so common now that packages are pretty inexpensive. Also, if you are using a donor CRM platform, Constant Contact and MailChimp integrate with those platforms so that this can really be seamless work for you. Always personalize emails with a donor's first name. No more, dear friend. There's so much research around this and incredibly easy to do with current email platforms. Do it every time. Referencing things in the email that are personal to the group that you're sending to. For instance, if you're sending an email to monthly donors, be sure to say something like, as a monthly donor, you provide fill in the blank. Always use the first name, right? Similar to email. Think about customizing ask amounts. The first time you do this, it can make you uncomfortable, but it's a proven strategy that works, and it's really easy to do in direct mail appeals. Use automation when possible, but don't skip making things personal, right? AI is helping us out, right, with the automation piece, but personal and the follow-up are the things that seal the deal. I love using a welcome series to thank a donor after their first gift and provide some relevant information about the organization. Again, this can be done via those email platforms. These work well when they're personalized and truly feel like a one-on-one note from the organization to the donor. Use segmentation when providing donor updates on impact achieved. I love sending quarterly updates to donors about how their funds have been put into action throughout the year. Segmentation puts a focus on data as you're trying to collect as much relevant information as possible about your donors. Be sure, as a part of your process, your database and email platforms are updated regularly to clean up the data, right? Things change. People unfortunately pass away. Sometimes there's a move. Sometimes there's a divorce. Sometimes there's a new phone number, right? Or a preferred email change. Make sure that you're spending time in cleaning your data. Segmentation is a powerful way to connect with donors. Before you start diving in, I do encourage you to have some internal conversations about your strategy. Think about how you want to segment donors, what will be the most meaningful for your organization, and working collaboratively to develop a strategy to implement. Like everything else, some of this will be trial and error in the beginning. It's incredibly important to track what you do and measure the results. It will take some fine-tuning, but segmentation can work for you. Remember today's takeaways. Develop a clearer understanding of what donor segmentation is. Share some ways you can segment even if you don't have a lot of technology right now, and leaving you with tips for success. Make sure to follow me on your favorite streaming platforms, including YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Many of you may know that I'm no longer on Facebook or Instagram. Yep, that's right. I'm only using online platforms that work for me. So for additional resources and tools, follow me on LinkedIn. You can also check out my website, inciteconsultinggroup.com. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great week.